Dude, the Browns. Here's to hoping that we never have to watch Deshaun Watson ever again play for the Cleveland Browns, because this team has been night and day different with Jameis Winston at quarterback than they were with Deshaun Watson. I mean, they were like not even remotely entertaining with Deshaun Watson. Just as a pure football fan, like the enjoyment level when you watch the Browns with Jameis is so much higher than it was with Deshaun Watson. And for fantasy football too, obviously there was tons of fantasy stuff going on tonight. We'll get into the fantasy part of it after what I got right and wrong, because that's what you know you're all here for. What I got right and wrong for Week 13. Welcome back to my Night of Repentance, otherwise known as Transparency Hour. This is what you're here for tonight. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. And let's start out with something very, very easy this week. Something that I got right in this particular week right here was, I say that's easy because I think that what I saw from a lot of people this week, heading into the week, was, someone who I considered a must start all the time. Like basically since like mid-September, he's been a must start weekly. Terry McLaurin, he was getting, I got tons of questions about Terry McLaurin. Should I play Terry McLaurin or should I play Bucky Irving? And listen, Bucky Irving was a great play. Like, not discounting what Bucky Irving did. But I got a lot of questions about, just general Terry McLaurin questions that I wasn't anticipating throughout the week. And I just kind of had to say, guys, Terry McLaurin's a must-start. That's just the way it is. He is a must-start player every single week. I can't think of a reason to bench Terry McLaurin. So he comes out this week and he has 2 touchdown performances. That shouldn't surprise anyone. After that performance, he's actually the wide receiver 3 in fantasy football. Now, granted, it's a really tight race between wide receiver 2 all the way down to wide receiver 5. They're all basically within 20 points of each other. But Terry McLaurin, the majority of the year, guys, I said this heading into the week. And really after that Philadelphia game in Week 11 on Thursday night, there's been 3 bad games, 3 bust games from Terry McLaurin. There was 2 at the beginning of the year, weeks 1 and 2. And that was when him and Jaden Daniels were still building a connection. Then he's been great ever since then. And then he has that really down week in Week 11 versus Philly on Thursday night. And everybody's like, oh, he's not good again. And it's like, guys, this is a really good receiver. This is a league winner this year. So I was just kind of shocked heading into the week, seeing how many people asked me about Terry McLaurin. And it was just, it was a crazy, crazy good game for Terry McLaurin. 8 receptions on 8 targets, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's what Terry McLaurin could do for you this year. I keep saying this. This offense in Washington, it's a 1 wide receiver offense. That's why I never really pay much attention to Noah Brown, or Luke McCaffrey. It's just this is Terry McLaurin's game. It's with it's with Jaden. I've got Jameis Winston and the Browns on my mind tonight because it was fun. We'll get to it in a little bit. But Terry McLaurin was something I got really right. And equally as wrong, I really, really screwed up on Kenneth Walker this week. I'm kind of mind blown, to be honest with you, about Kenneth Walker and what happened to him in particular. Kenneth Walker, I've been kind of saying this for a few weeks. If you actually look at Kenneth Walker and his fantasy involvement, his efficiency has been pretty bad for the most of the last month. Dating back to Week 8, he's averaging 1.3 yards per carry, then 3.3. 3.9 was his highest during that time, 2.6 and 3.1 yards per carry. It's just really bizarre. This is usually a very efficient running back, and someone who I consider one of the most explosive, best athletes at the running back position in the NFL today. So he comes out against the Jets, who I thought was a great matchup. The Jets defense had been reeling ever since they fired Robert Saleh. And he puts up 16 carries. That's a pretty good, volume level for 49 yards. I don't know what to say. Honestly, I'm in a state of kind of shock with Kenneth Walker this week because I was telling to play him over guys like Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, and those ones came back to bite me big time. Zach Charbonnet gets a goal line work. And I think, no, it wasn't even goal line. I don't know. I know he got in the end zone this week, but it's just like, I don't understand what's going on with Seattle and with Kenneth Walker in particular. But it is concerning. It's definitely something that I'm going to have to watch out for. And I've got to realistically go back and watch that full game against the Jets. I haven't watched the full game yet. My attention was somewhere else on Sunday, especially during that time. So it just, that was a weird game for Kenneth Walker. But nonetheless, I was really wrong. Because like I told people, like I said, Chase Brown, I'd play Kenneth Walker over him. I'd play Kenneth Walker over Bucky Irving. And both those guys outscored him big time. Kenneth Walker right now is a running back 20 in fantasy football. And at one time, that guy was averaging like 19 fantasy points per game. He's averaging 14.8 because he had such a strong start to the year. And he's mostly held the production over the last month, but his ceiling has definitely gone away. Like his 30-point, 25-point ceiling is kind of gone. Over the last month, 12.2, 12.9, 11.3, 5.6 fantasy points in a half PPR format. Like, it's just different. It's just way, way different. I don't know. Yeah, that's one that bothers me. I'm going to have to kind of watch out for Kenneth Walker moving forward because I got that one really wrong. Now, here's something I got right. And I don't take pride in this. Like, in these types of situations, it's not like I take pride when I predict a certain player to do bad. And I don't like to take credit for the pessimism that I hold with certain players, right? But, sometimes they're right. And I think this one's particularly important to go through because obviously the moment that J.K. Dobbins went down, what was the first reaction by everybody? Everybody goes to the waiver wire and grabs Gus Edwards. And I said, listen, guys, like, I think that I would prioritize Gus Edwards on the waiver wire, but don't forget about Kamani Vidal. Now, Kamani Vidal was not good. This is not a Kamani Vidal told you so moment right here. But Gus Edwards, I was getting questioned, like, why isn't he inside your top 30? Do you understand that he's starting? Are you paying attention? It's like, guy, yeah, I'm paying attention. How are you paying attention? Like, Gus Edwards has been bad this year. And Gus Edwards, although he did average 5.3 yards per carry, he had 6 carries for 32 yards. Well, do you want to know why? It's because they can't give him many opportunities per game. Because it's over. Like, you try to give this guy 15 carries in a game, his efficiency is going from 5.3, which he had on Sunday versus the Falcons, probably down to 3 yards per carry. Something like that. Like, Gus Edwards, it's over. That's why I said I think Kamani Vidal may be just as good of a pickup. Because right now, like in the first game, it didn't show itself, right? Kamani Vidal had 4 carries compared to Gus's 6. Right, so it didn't show like Kamani Vidal was going to take over this backfield. I'm telling you guys, this is a run-first team, and I guarantee you that Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman did not like how this game turned out for them. Like, even though they won, this was not the way they wanted to win. Like, they basically got gifted that game by Kirk Cousins. They're going to go back to the film room. I'm guaranteeing you guys this. At this point, I'm ready to say Kamani Vidal is the better back in fantasy moving forward in Los Angeles. I am ready to tell you guys that. So I hope people take it seriously. Because if you're looking for a league winner heading into your fantasy playoffs, knowing that J.K. Dobbins is done in fantasy, you need to look at Kamani Vidal rather than Gus Edwards. If Kamani Vidal is on your waiver wire, this is a guy I'd be making a priority pickup for this week. Just saying. So, here's something I got wrong. And this is also a guy that I have a lot of pessimism for as well. And this one's like really wrong. I've been very pessimistic over the years, really. This is not just like a recent thing. This is a cumulative thing that I have not particularly liked this player, not just in football, but like also whenever I hear like former players and coaches talk about like a player in a negative way, I take that more seriously than any square in the media. Like, Squares in the media didn't like Dan Campbell. Well, look who looks like an idiot now. You want to give those... Sometimes you just need to give someone in the media a nice swirly in the toilet. Like, I don't care what they say. When I hear former players talking about players in a negative light, I want to talk about that. And Jerry Jeudy is a guy that I've not liked over the years because people have questioned his effort. You know, Steve Smith Sr., obviously, you know, probable Hall of Famer at some point. He questioned Jerry Jeudy a lot when he was in Denver. And I think that, you know, that obviously, like I said, that says something to me. Like, it does mean something. So when he gets sent over to Cleveland and they give him a contract extension, I'm thinking, wow, this is just another Browns move. Like, I've been watching this all my life. The Browns do things like this. And up until, Jameis came in, Jerry Jeudy was, like, pretty much irrelevant with Deshaun Watson. Well, come to find out, it's only because Deshaun Watson's that bad. Because the moment Jameis has stepped in, dude, Jerry Jeudy has been honestly awesome. Like, Jerry Jeudy obviously tears it up tonight, right? Like, over 200 yards. And I think I saw on the broadcast today, on the Joe Buck and Troy Aikman broadcast tonight, I think I saw they had a stat up there that Jerry Jeudy, this is the most all-time receiving yards by any receiver versus their former team. So this was a revenge game to the max. I mean, he put like 210 plus yards on the Broncos tonight. I mean, he ripped them to shreds. He absolutely shredded them. Like, it was unreal what he was able to do tonight. And again, and I told a lot of people, like, I wasn't against Jerry Jeudy as a fantasy play this week, but I was like saying I'd play Pittman over him because I didn't like the matchup that he was having to go against versus Pat Surtain. I didn't like that opportunity. Well, he comes out and it doesn't even matter. Like, for the majority of the game, they did not have Pat Surtain shadowing Jerry Jeudy. Like, on that big touchdown play, that was not Pat Surtain. That was another corner. And by the way, their second corner on the other side was out tonight. So they adjusted later in the game to put Pat Surtain following Jerry Jeudy, but it was too little too late at that point. So Jerry Jeudy, I got that one really wrong. And I'm not just talking about this week. Again, I'm talking about also the fact that, Jerry Jeudy he's been great. I mean, realistically, like, he has been pretty awesome in fantasy ever since Jameis came in. Really wrong about that one. Here's something I got right, is that you always got to trust in certain Hall of Fame caliber players. Mike Evans comes back last week and doesn't have his best performance, right? He hadn't played in over a month. And people were like, should I put him back in the lineup? And I was like, yeah, put him back in. And he doesn't do that well. So then again, it's kind of like the Terry McLaurin thing where it's like he has one downish game. And people were like, well, do I play Mike Evans? And it's like, yes. Like, second week back, you play Mike Evans. You play Mike Evans, man. So I had a lot of confidence heading into the week with Mike Evans. Because, again, you just got to trust certain Hall of Fame players. Now, it's been a little different for someone like a Tyreek Hill, right? Like, I also consider him a Hall of Fame type of player. This year's a little different, but Mike isn't actively dealing with a torn ligament in his wrist like Tyreek is. Mike had obviously a massive hammy injury that held him out for more than a month, and they slow played it as they should have, and he came back healthy, and he looks great again. You play the guy. You do not have Mike Evans on your bench because he can do what he just did against the Carolina Panthers anytime. And then we'll end off with this. I can't believe I have to say this. This is nuts, man. Tomorrow when you see the wide receiver rankings, maybe you'll see me make a statement ranking because I'm blown away that he's still getting away with this. Like, it doesn't make sense that Nick Westbrook-Akine is getting away with this, man. Like, I had so many Nick Westbrook-Akine questions this week, and I would say like 10% of the time, maybe even 5%, I was saying to play Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Because it didn't freaking make sense, man. It did not. There was nothing about this that made any sense. Since the bye week that they had in week 5, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 touchdowns since week 6. That's 8 touchdowns in 8 games, guys. He was doing all that with a max of 6 targets. It was unbelievable. Like, unreal efficiency. Crazy. Now, against Washington in week 13, he had 8 targets, but he still only had 3 catches. And 2 of them were touchdowns. Like, I'm blown away. And at this point, the reason I have to say this tonight is because it's a defining moment of where we're at in the fantasy season. We are in the home stretch. This is the last quarter of the fantasy season, and you're either heading into your fantasy playoffs this week or you're a week away. Now, what you thought about certain players 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, pre-draft, is out the window. You got to ride the lightning sometimes. This applies to Marquez Valdes-Scantling as well. Because those two guys are working right now. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, they are slicing defenses up on a weekly basis. So you've got to just ride the lightning on certain guys. It goes against a lot of metrics, but that's the funny thing about fantasy. This is the reason why I don't stress stupid metrics. If you get too deep in the data, you'll get lost in the wilderness, and you won't ever make it out. You'll be knowledgeable about stats that don't matter at the end of the day, because sometimes you just catch a streak and you ride it. Go with your gut a lot of these times. When we get this late into the season, you got to go with your gut. You got to. So if you feel like you need to start with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine next week because you want to ride the lightning, I'm not going to argue with you, truthfully. Because this dude has 8 touchdowns in the last 8 games. It's unheard of. But he's doing it. So that one is one I got really wrong. So that was what I got right and wrong. Let me end it off with some post-game thoughts because that game was awesome. Like, that was in contention. I mean, I don't know. Like, was there a better Monday night game this year so far? This one was freaking awesome. I loved every moment of this game. Dude, this game had so much in it. Like, Jameis, the first thing I want to touch on, man, Jameis Winston and Jerry Jeudy, they sliced up Denver's defense together. Jameis, I think, did he throw for 500 yards tonight? It was either 500 or just under 500. Let me pull it up. 497 for Jameis Winston tonight. 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, saving the Broncos week on defense because the Broncos had 2 pick sixes in this game. And honestly, the third one was almost a pick six as well. Jerry Jeudy ended up chasing down the last interception with probably like 30 yards to spare or something like that. But nonetheless, that does not take away from the fact that Jameis played awesome football tonight. This is what I was saying, man. We had not seen this all year from Deshaun Watson. And here's the news flash. You never will. Because Deshaun Watson is not that player again. And listen, I hate to dunk on players with injuries. But given Deshaun Watson, kind of, what we know about him, I'm very hopeful that I'm not saying they should re-sign Jameis or anything like that, but I'm hopeful we don't have to see Deshaun Watson. Because this team has talent, man. Jerry Jeudy, again, 235 yards through the air. Elijah Moore was a great play tonight. 8 catches, 111 yards. Like, it was friggin' awesome. Man, it was a sweet game tonight. I mean, Jameis Winston literally, like, this was his best game in fantasy. But again, this also, I was about to go live and I heard Andrew Van Pelt, or whatever his name is, Scott Van Pelt, on ESPN, saying after the game, like, this was the full Jameis Winston experience. And I was like, yeah, he's actually right. Like, this actually was the full Jameis experience because You let this guy throw close to 60 times, which he threw 58 balls tonight. You're also going to get tons of mistakes. And this is always why I say play a defense that's playing Jameis Winston. Because this is in the cards. Like, he was awesome. He was wild. He's a cowboy. That guy throws crazy passes. That's entertainment. Like, that makes it an entertaining game. Because this guy, you never know if this is going to work or if this is going to be a disaster. And he had some really awesome plays tonight, but he also had some plays that were like, why would you throw that ball? Like, 2 of those picks, I was like, what is going on in his head before he releases that ball? Yeah, I mean, that's the full Jameis Winston experience for you. What a game between those two. My next thought on this one, I want to bring this guy up because I feel like I'm the only fantasy football YouTuber who has given this guy any sort of, like, discussion particularly. Like, this is more so on my Dynasty channel, Dynasty Fanalysts, which you guys will want to keep up with in the offseason because that's where I am mostly early part of the offseason is on my Dynasty channel, Dynasty Fanalysts. There's a link to that channel on my channel, Football Fanalysts Network. But, you know, I think that Marvin Mims is a guy that I had been talking about a decent amount this offseason. Not a ton, obviously. I mean, he's a role player still, but I had kind of given him a lot of thought. Called him a buy low trade target early in the offseason, and you know, I think that really there's a question that I have kind of lingering. Is Marvin Mims a league-winning sleeper potentially? Like, honestly, I don't know where I stand on this one. This is literally just a post-game reaction, and I haven't really thought about this one or looked into it much. But obviously, Bo Nix throws an absolute dart to Marvin Mims tonight over the middle of the field. Like, split the defense perfectly. Like, that throw couldn't have been better, honestly. Like, he timed that perfectly. It was on 3rd and 11 on their own 7-yard line. And Bo Nix split the defense perfectly. Perfect timing. Marvin Mims catches it, takes it the distance. Gets like 3 catches for over 100 yards and the touchdown. And the reason I'm interested in Marvin right now is because Sean Payton has been talking about him, you know, in the media like the past couple of weeks, and he's like, listen, I'm going to keep like drawing plays up for Marvin Mims. And I remember going into the offseason, the reason I liked Marvin Mims is because Sean Payton's a really creative guy. Marvin Mims was Sean Payton's first draft pick as the Broncos head coach. Not only that, he traded up to get the guy. And I always thought, like, this is kind of his Brandon Cooks from when he was with the Saints. And so during the offseason, like, I was reading about, like, what Sean Payton was saying about him, and he was like, honestly, it was on me, like, that Marvin Mims didn't develop over the season, and, like, we didn't get much out of him. And so I looked into that, and I was like, I kind of feel like he's going to be a little bit of a sleeper. And obviously, he hasn't done much of a majority of the year, but the past several weeks, he's been getting his role. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be like a weekly play or someone you play over like even like a Marquez Valdes-Scantling right now, but that's kind of the direction I think we might be heading. There's guys like this at the end of every year. It reminds me of Christian Watson in his rookie year. He caught fire at the end of his rookie year. And outside of that, like last month of the season, like Watson was kind of a disappointment. But he caught fire. And it mattered to fantasy teams. It won people championships. It won me a couple championships that particular year. Right now, our early candidates for that is Nick Westbrook-Akine, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I might throw Marvin Mims into that equation. I don't know. I'm curious to see what goes on moving forward, to be honest with you. And my last thought, again, I always like to do something specifically to the game itself, not even fantasy related. One thing I noticed tonight, and honestly, this was a massive reason. Like I just said, I think this was in contention if it was not the best Monday night game of the year. It's in contention if it was not the best game. I enjoyed every minute of this game. And about midway through, like, the third quarter, end of the third quarter, I was like, one of the reasons I love this game is because the refs have been almost invisible tonight. Like, unless there's an egregious call, they're invisible. And even they even missed some calls. But you know what I figured out? Like, and I had known this about myself, but it was really just refreshing. Because this year, I've been complaining about the refs all year long. I prefer less penalties than more. And if that means that you miss like an obvious roughing the passer like they did on Jameis tonight, or they missed an obvious face mask on Jaleel McLaughlin tonight, so be it. So be it. Like, it is a better watch for us when there's less penalties all over the freaking field. It's a disgrace, honestly. Like, I remember, like, I was watching the Steelers-Bengals game, and that ref in that game, Sean Hockley, Ed Hockley's brother, only football maniacs will know about this. Like, refs in the game. Like, who knows a ref's name, realistically, other than a maniac like myself? Sean Hockley, Ed Hockley's son, throws as many flags as he did. It turns into the Sean Hockley show. I'm the ref here. You guys are all here to watch me. So this football game you're watching, yeah, that's just a sideshow. The attention should be on me. That's what I was watching with the Steelers and Bengals yesterday. And tonight was so refreshing because the refs were almost invisible for the majority of the game. I don't know who was officiating in that game, but I'll tell you this, I do a lot of the times because it drives me insane. But tonight was so refreshing. Less calls are so much better than more calls. And if that leads to the refs missing on an obvious face mask or an obvious rushing the passer, so freaking be it. So freaking be it. Those are my thoughts. Appreciate y'all being in here tonight. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. Tomorrow, important ranking videos for week 14 as we get into the fantasy playoffs. Maybe you're there, or maybe you're a week out. Love you guys. Stay tuned for tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow.